So this presentation is about GDPR feature, and I'll explain in a more detail about GDPR later. How we can recognize GDPR articles from the legal side, and how to map them into the SQL Server features. So basically, I will just later in presentation show you the article, then the list of the features from SQL Server that can be applied. So when I say SQL Server, I also mean Azure SQL database. It's the same. So it basically is the same. So they're using same data engine behind. So every feature that actually is working on SQL Server can be applied on the Azure SQL database. Okay. Let me start, and I will now just turn off my cam just to actually to give the focus on the presentation, and on the end I will back my camera on. Okay. So agenda is simple. So we have, I believe, some 17 slides, and after that I will show you, I believe, 5 or 6 demos, and these demos are recorded. I'll just start the video presentation here on my screen, and I'll be the narrator of those videos. So the first, we'll start with issues. When I say issues, I will try to explain why the GDPR is important from the user side, and also why it's important from the let's say enterprise side of the business. Later, I will explain what GDPR actually means and how it actually is fitting in European Union legal side, and why is it also this GDPR feature and the legal side is actually most wanted, let's say, in the privacy field of the legal side and certification currently in the world. After that, this presentation is going technical. I will just show you the features and map them to the GDPR articles to actually to show you and illustrate how you can recognize the features from SQL Server and actually use them in your daily job. Okay, when I say issues, I mean this. You can easily find this web page. I believe it's called the world's biggest data breaches and hacks. Under the URL, informations are beautiful, and subsection of the data breaches. So this page is actually illustrated in these large bubbles and small and medium-sized bubbles, and I'll explain what size means here. Shows the biggest data breaches and hacks from the last 15 years. So you can easily scroll down if you find the page to see that actually this actually start from 2000, I believe, 8 or 9. So these balloons, these bubbles actually represent the scale, how large is the scale of actually data leaks. For example, in 2022, I believe they still didn't do any refreshment, but this year actually from I believe last Friday, there was information of the large data breach of the Uber, and I believe all of us actually are users of the Uber at least one time in our lifetime, and I believe many of us are using Uber on the daily basis. The breach of the Uber in my scale is on the epic scale 10 of 10. So I will not speak about technical details. I will not speak about security perception of this story. I will now just focus on the privacy part, because GDPR is focused on the privacy. Yes, privacy and security can go along, but mostly they are opposite, because increasing the level of the security in any segment of our lives means decreasing the privacy, and vice versa. But security features can be used to implement some privacy requests from the customer side or the business side. So these bubbles means how many records in the millions is actually leaked leaked from the entity here: Facebook, Shanghai Police, Twitter, Oxy Data, Marriott International Hotel. Actually, the Marriott was leaked, I believe, 2 times in the history, and the last time was somewhere in the middle of the Corona outbreak, 2020-21, I believe. Also down there, there's a Yahoo 2 times by billion, and I will repeat myself, billion. So we are speaking about 2 billion of the records and data and the files that actually goes out. So okay, now again, I will not speak about security part. So every of these bubbles happen because security is failed. Security awareness, security and the technical perspective, implementation, name it. But from the privacy perspective, the customers of these business entities are their privacy is at stake. So the customer doesn't know, the user doesn't know what kind of data is actually was leaked from Facebook. Last name, first name, my password, hashes, my posts, my private messages, and this list can be applied on any of it. So this presentation will simply try to show you the features that can prevent. The privacy feature itself can't prevent the breach, but can minimize the damage. So if we actually apply this feature carefully with the planning, so we need to actually have the scope of the system, what kind of the data we try to protect, and if we implement those features in the correct way, even in the breach scenario, the damage can be minimized, because those data will be simply unreadable or unaccessible, or in any way can be used from the malicious user. Okay, and the last one, I'll just now look at my phone. Yes, also before a couple, I believe it's a 15 days day long old news. The Meta, I believe the Facebook, I say Meta, and Instagram has been fined with almost 500 million euros by Irish Data Protection Committee, because of the privacy. So because they evaluate the policy. So you see that this story can have the legal consequences, and also the financial part can be also really hard on the business side. Okay, so what is GDPR? GDPR, in the nutshell, is a legal part of the story. So the general data protection rules is a law that's actually is actually created and started to use, implemented in the May 2018 by EU as a mandatory policy for every country that is actually the member of EU, and the countries that are starting the procedure to actually become the members of EU. Because implement GDPR is not so easy, because it's not a technical part. So the GDPR is not for the technical part of the team. So we need the middle layer here. And middle layer should be the person who have the understanding of the legal side and the technical side, but on the higher level. So that middle layer doesn't need to know how the encryption actually works, what is the data masking, and so on. But he or she or they need to interpret the legal part of the story on the technical language, so the team can recognize the correct features, not only on the database level, on every level of the information system. Why we are speaking about GDPR? So why actually EU start, and this is actually good stuff. There is nothing wrong with GDPR. So from the customer side, from the user side, from the individual side, so from ethical part, from ethical angle of this presentation, this is the good stuff. Why? Because it cares about private life and us as human beings. So the human being has a basic right to the privacy. And we all know that privacy in the modern digital ecosystem environment, especially last 10 to 5 years, is mostly disappeared, because every service that we use, cloud or on-prem application, mobile phones, digitalization of every segment of our lives simply kills the privacy, because things are going that direction. But GDPR is here to actually minimize damage. So the GDPR will actually force the business to pay attention on the privacy in a segment that they not collect, that they not process, and they not keep the data and later information that they don't need anymore, or actually they don't need at all. Because I believe we are all the witness the many of the services of registration where actually they collect a lot of our personal data. This picture here is just for illustration: name, address, localization, online, grid, health information, income, cultural profile, the sex, and so on. So all this information, let's say for some portal web page, are useless. You need only my email, my last name, first name, or the nickname if we are speaking about some privacy forum, and that's it. Not any of this information is necessary. But from the large scale, let's say from the Facebook perspective, Twitter, Instagram, these services are collecting the large amount of data, and that's why the Irish Data Protection Committee is actually had the penalty of 500 million euros for the Meta, actually Facebook, the Instagram sub service. So again, this is the good stuff, good thing for the user, but could be challenging for the vendors from the legal side and the technical implementation side. Okay, now to the point. The GDPR is really large, so it's a lot of papers, a lot of documents, but I just create the subset of the articles they are not all because they had many of them. The more I believe a couple of hundred articles is in GDPR, especially because GDPR is live issue, because almost on the quartal basis there is some improvement, addition, the moving the articles and improvement, because the privacy is a little better, and it's not something that you can say, okay, this is the pit stop and we are doing this next 10 years like this. So this is not possible. So the privacy is also the live. So I just create a subset of the articles that can be mapped to the data layer. In this presentation, we are speaking especially on the SQL Server. So I will elaborate each of these articles in the following slide. But just for the record, article 25, 30, 32, 33, and 35. Each of the articles can be mapped with a really cool feature in SQL Server. And to be honest with you, I'm using SQL Server from version heavily from version 2005, but my say experience started with the version 2000, the old one, and in all this history of the SQL Server, my focus was on the security and the privacy feature on SQL Server. And if I try to compare with the current database market, we are speaking also on-prem and cloud version and hybrid, of course. The SQL Server simply has currently the best the feature set that can be used and applied in the privacy part of the equation and also on the security part of the equation. So Article 25 of GDPR says we need to protect data by design and by default. Why? Because the most configuration elements of the system are deleted by default, and believe me, it's true. Especially if you're speaking in the cloud, in the cloud perspective, and also if you are speaking on the on-prem development, because administrator also the last, let's say last 5 years, especially SQL Server came in closed by default, so everything is off. You need to open the port, you need to activate mixed authentication, you need to activate SR if you need, and so on. So it's closed by default. But some of the services, especially in other database elements and other part of the information systems, are open by default. So GDPR is not targeting only SQL Server, they're targeting IT in general. So by design and by default, data protection must be protected. So must be on. So when we try to map this feature, this article on the feature level of the SQL Server, these are the features that can control who has the access to actually on the system level, so on the instance level, then on the database level, on the table level, on the actually every object level of our system. So authentication. So it's the first pit stop. So it's simple by default. You can't access any of the SQL Server or Azure resources without authentication. Then later there's the authorization part that will check what you can do actually in the system. It's a common, it's a simple, but it's a by default. The same feature can be applied in the cloud with Azure Active Directory AD. So especially in the last year with Azure AD, Azure AD is connected on the every layer of the Azure system and actually on-prem, cloud, and hybrid. So single sign-on with let's say with 2FA enforced is really putting this data protection by design and by default on the next level. But 2FA must be enforced. So unfortunately, SQL Server in on-prem version doesn't have 2FA. We can use some hacks, we can use some additional SQL programming and so on, but it's improvisation. It simply is that is not enough. But if we push this feature on the cloud perception, on the cloud level, Azure AD with 2FA is whole different level. Yes, and 2FA also can be bypassed, especially if you read now little bit digression. If you read anything about Uber data leak and the data breach, you will see that Uber have actually 2FA implemented on any user endpoint, but the pushing, forcing the large number of the requests on 2FA is actually create a social element on one of the endpoints that actually say approve, and that was the entry point, starting entry point of the Uber data breach. Also, object level permission, role-based security, firewall, dynamic data masking. I will show later in the demo. I have the question, sorry, from the book. SQL authentication, the password is marked as untrusted. Yes, of course. So if you use just a SQL Server authentication without transferring on the network level through the SSL, is totally unsafe, because any user can actually see that on the network level. Okay, next question. Unfortunately, there is no tool to script all these features, but I will show you the feature in SQL Server that can help you to recognize the column in database that can be candidate to be forced to be applied and force GDPR regulation. But I don't, maybe tool is actually exists, but based on my knowledge, I don't know any tool and script that can verify is SQL Server GDPR compliant. So this should be I believe custom based. So all these features are the basics. There is no any rocket science here, but if you apply them correctly, they can create the large, let's say, China wall ahead of your system, that abuser, the malicious entity, need to actually pass on, and that is not easy part. We see again on the Uber side, it can be possible, but it requires a large amount of preparation, knowledge. But again, we are now trying to enter the security part, and are trying to avoid this security part, because security of SQL Server is totally different story from the privacy. Okay, we are going next. Just as an illustration, this dynamic data masking, I will show you a later demo, is actually what it means. From my perspective, on the user level. So imagine this: you have the user on one level of the system, where they need to see some user data that can be classified as a private. GDPR logs them as a private. So, for example, this table, first name, last name, phone number, email address, and credit card number, can be by default pulled out with select statement in some GUI environment, web-based or mobile-based, doesn't matter. And this is this from the operator perspective, this can be an issue, because user, maybe it's their job, can see credit card numbers, can see the emails, phone numbers, but maybe from that specific job item is not necessary. So we can simply implement dynamic data masking to do something like this. Just to match. This is on the user level. So the data is actually not changed on the database level. They are stayed on the original manner. But when they pull out from the data environment, from the DB engine, they're actually masked on the way and interpret end user interface like this. Of course, this is not protection from the admin part of the malicious, but can protect the privacy from the user side. So if the for example, some of the operator needs to see some of this data, we can now later implement the feature in the application. I can click on the email will show to me, but I will have the record that operator Janeway, Captain Janeway for the Voyager, is actually see the email from Jasmin Azemović. So again, we have all the history of the pool data and actually accesses data if they're needed. So this is other part of the story from the GDPR. We in any point of time, we need to track the record who actually sees our data and who is actually access our data, because without that, GDPR compliance certificate will not be issued for the legal entity. Okay. Actually, Article 30 is actually speaks about that. So records of the processing activities. What it means? I need to have the record of any data access activity, even select. Okay, now SQL Server have the great, also Azure part of the ecosystem. SQL Server Azure have the great tool. So this tool is actually old couple of versions. I believe to version 2016, but I'm not sure actually at this point. This point is introduced the SQL Server Audit. Before SQL Server Audit, trying to have a track of the record activity was really hard job to do. We are using the triggers, procedures, or even the application level to actually intercept any of the user clicks and data access and collect them in the separate table. So SQL Server Audit, and I will again show this later in the demo, is an out-of-the-box feature. So it's a built-in on the engine level. So there is no any performance issue. There is no any obstacle that can be issue as a triggers. Because trigger is event-based code that is actually fired on the event base. So it means something needs to happen, and we have a little delay to actually catch that event and collect that event and store that event. So the trigger on the large scale can be really processing a performance issue, but SQL Server audit and auditing on the Azure SQL database is the same stuff. This job simply put on the next level. I will show you again, say in the demo. Article 32, security. So you see, now we are mixing the privacy and security. Why? Because we need to ensure the security of the processing to ensure the privacy of the user. So this is the place where the security and privacy meet. So again, data should be encrypted and pseudonymized. So if the data that GDPR recognize as a GDPR must be protected, then we need to apply encryption on them, or again, depends on the implementation and the business use. We can use pseudonymizing to actually the mask. So data masking can be something as a pseudonymized, but also pseudonymized can be put on the totally different level. So you see, all these features here there's not anything new here. So robust security, TLS, TD, always encrypted, SQL Server always on, point time restore, active replication are simply the features that exist in the SQL Server for last 5 or even more years. But they can be used to implement the security of the processing to actually ensure the privacy of the user. So why? For example, I'll later show you in the demo how to implement encryption on the column level inside your database on the column credit card numbers. So why? Because if data breach is happened, so if data leaks is on the way, and you find on the news and in your logs that someone has pulled your database outside, and this is a terrible news for you in that point in time. The factor of the relief, if I may say so, can be that all the personal and private data are de-encrypted, and if you have the proper key management on the place, so you not keep the keys on the easy access level inside your system, so the malicious user can simply watch your data and cry above them, because for example IS-256 you can use brute force, but it will take the millions of years, even if you use GPU cards. But if you're speaking on the quantum level, that's a whole other story. The classic encryption will break down, but there is also quantum encryption that actually will take the place when times come. Okay, we are moving forward. Article 33. This is for the business the most embarrassing part, and from the user is actually the place where I can keep my confidence in that business entity. So notification on the state level, on the country level, on the I don't know what kind of level, that something is happened in the company A, and after that personal notification of each users of their ecosystem that something has gone wrong with the letter and the steps what they can do to mitigate the factor of the breach. So again, I will make a slight diversion. If you remember those bubbles and breaches from the beginning of my presentation, the many of of these breaches, the users is actually fined after, let's say, 6 months, after 1 year, or maybe they find somewhere on the news portal, in the deep web, or on the portals where can they check the email addresses. Are they somewhere in the collection of the data breaches? So the companies, maybe they say on the legal side of the story, yes, we have the breach, we're sorry for that, we are doing all to mitigate, but they didn't notify all the users. So GDPR is force you to notify your users by email, by SMS, by, doesn't matter. So you need to provide notification service, notification channels to users to actually give them knowledge about what can do to minimize this. Again, on the Uber example, before a couple of days, they didn't notify users about what can do. So the only article I see is actually, I see it yesterday, is from Kaspersky Lab, where they have now analyzed the Uber breach. This is a really good article, and they recommend, watch this now, they recommend that each user is actually delete Uber account and then recreate it again. So it's, now imagine that someone say to you, you need to delete your Facebook, Twitter, you're losing everything, and then recreate again. So it's epic scale. So it's a large. So the consequences of the Uber breach will be known in the following months. So each day something new pop up. So now imagine if something shows up in the deep web of the personal user data from the Uber in the countries of EU where the Uber have their representations. So this is an area of the millions or even billions lawsuit to actually protect the user and protect their business. So yes, notification needs to be implemented on every level. So SQL Server on-prem doesn't have, and currently I don't know, maybe some future version doesn't have the feature that can actually, let's say, put the email addresses from table as an email or notification. So it can be created manually on the application, but on the Azure there is a threat detection that can be used to notify let's say a large number of users of administration staff to actually help you to start investigation and mitigation process. So this notification part of the personal data breach is not perfect in SQL Server, but this feature can be your starting point to get notified if something goes wrong. So also please, after the presentation, I will show you the place where you can check is your business email or private email is actually shown anywhere on the deep web in any currently known data breach. And Article 35, data protection impact assessment. So I believe if any of you here on the other side, and I don't know how many is you on the other side, do security on the strategic level, knows that everything goes and start by the risk assessment. So there is no correct way to see the bigger picture of the system and the data as a part of the system without the proper risk analysis that will show to us what is at the stake, what is the risk, especially in this privacy part. So the risk basically is asset, is a threat, and vulnerability. And it can be shown by the percentage. So say the percentage of the risk is, I don't know, 75% on the column emails in our system. So, but this number is not approximation; it's a calculated value. So we need to do risk assessment, but before that, we need to use the data. We need to collect data that is a starting point for the risk analysis. And SQL Server has a large, not so large, but any feature that actually collects the data on SQL Server on the instance and the database can be used for the impact analysis. So again, SQL Server audit, it collects the large amount of data of any user activity. So in these logs, we can see that the users frequently try to access the column name credit card numbers. Why? So without that, there is no way to know that I don't know, 55 employees in some banking sector without any business need try to access the credit card number columns or the salary amount on the table level. So why do you need to see this? So it's risk. So this risk need to have the background in the data. Temporal tables are the, from my perspective, second best feature for me. The first feature is encryption in any segment of the SQL Server, and the temporal tables are second best for me. Actually, I don't know, do you have any experience here, but I will again show you the demo, how you can use temporal tables to collect the historical data that can be analyzed as a risk assessment. And also data discovery and classification with the tool. And this was a question. This was a question on the beginning. There's any tool? Yes, there is no any tool that can say that SQL Server is GDPR compliant. But this feature on the SMS tool can be used to help you to classify data on the large database. So, for example, you have the database, legacy database, that doesn't have any labeling or privacy or security features inside because it's legacy, it's old. But you need to classify, I don't know, 200 tables with, I don't know, at least 2,000 columns, and say this column is GDPR, this column is banking number, this is salary, and all they have the privacy issues. Yes, we can do it manually, but it will take a large amount of time. But with data discovery and classification, this can be done in a couple of minutes. Is not the perfect. You need to verify this result, but it can decrease the amount of time on the large scale. Okay, we are going forward. And as I say, data discovery and classification will discover and offer to classify and label the columns that hold the sensitive data, and if you need the report classification to have the additional inside your documentation. But again, I will show you later in the demo. So here's them. Now I will just close the presentation. Try to enter. Okay. Now, okay. First, we'll start with SQL audit using select statements. So, if you are using still triggers, you know that there is no way, there is no chance without any magic that trigger can catch the select statement, because select doesn't change anything. So the triggers is actually, if you are speaking about DML triggers, is actually fired on the update, delete, and insert statements. So select doesn't change anything, but selecting of data is always alarm on the large scale that something is not okay inside your system. So when the GDPR audit came to your company and say, okay, please show me, you had a policy, please show me in the policy place where you formally describe this procedure, and you have it, of course. And then now show me inside your system in last 10 days how many users is actually the fire read select statement. So without audit, this will be mission impossible, and you will not have GDPR certificate. But with this feature, it can be easily done. So simple. I'll show you this. Okay, you see simple select statement. Give me all from person, and that's okay. Now just try to filter to a couple of columns, and we see the last name and first name. Okay, now I will start. I'll just pause here, please. Okay, now to have SQL Server audit, I need to create an audit on the server level and then map that on the database level. So this screen shows you that database audit is created currently only on the one event, and it's select on the object level, schema person, object level person, on the principal name DBO. So who is your DBO? You know, but you can also be flexible here. Now I will start this. Okay, you see that I see, and you see here that select statement is fired a couple of times on the server Z from the user DBO, and there's a lot of metadata down below. I'm going to show you that can be used to trace the issue. So on the GDPR level, you are GDPR compliant with this feature. So simply you have to trace. You can trace anything. So select, insert, update, delete, create, alter, drop, and also a lot of other SQL statement, and also the statement and the functions that can be used on the server level that actually goes beyond the SQL statement, SQL leverage scope. So the SQL audit is one of the best features that can provide you insight to real-time tracking, and also on the risk analysis later to see is there any new risk inside your system, risks, sorry. And this was the first demo. I will now go back here. Okay, now I will show you how we can use data encryption as a security feature to protect data privacy. So the data encryption can mitigate a lot of issues. But from the privacy perspective, if your database has leaked somewhere, so data encryption is only thing that can stand before calamity, and your situation is bad, but it can be worse. So this data encryption can be a lifesaver, because maybe inside your risk assessment, you say, okay, there's a possibility that data breach is happened, and if it happened, we have implemented this and this to mitigate the issue. So formally you're covered. So your job is safe, because the data breach doesn't happen just only on the one layer. So database is the last layer. So basically the malicious user, the really rarely can access the data directly. So they need to go way around. For example, get the user account, password, bypass 2FA, get the screen, try to search the files, try to see is there any clear text passwords, and so on, and moving around the system until if they find the golden unicorn, and this is a database. So encryption is the only thing that stays in front of you. So how they create the DB crypto DB, just for the sake of the demo, and I will create the master encryption key on the database level. Now, again, I will stop here for shortly. I don't know how many experience you have on the encryption on the SQL Server, but I encourage you to investigate, to get knowledge, to get the know-how and experience, because this feature set is not really hard to use, and it's not hard to learn. So basically is everything is done. So you just need to understand the SQL Server encryption hierarchy, because that's the important part. What each key and where each key fits in, where they can be stored, where they can be backup, and they can be protected for the malicious user. So the key management is the key here. So encryption itself is easy part. So I'm creating the database master key, and with the sysview, I can see that this key is IS-265 is inside the database. Okay. Now I will create for the sake of demo, simple table as a customer encrypted data. And in next step, I will create certificate. So see, this is only one of the way that I can implement encryption. So I can skip this part. I can use directly a symmetric key, but this is additional feature. So I have the SQL Server encryption key as a first step. I have the database master key step before. Now I will have certificate as a step 3, and I will have asymmetric key as a step 4. So there's the 4 keys in hierarchy that need to be compromised to actually access this data. And certificate will actually defend IS-265. Okay, now I will generate with import the data from the VirtualBox database for the sake of the demo. But before that, I need to open the key. So again, little indication here. So please be aware, when the key is open in the memory, malicious process can access that key. So that's why important that server is your trusted environment. So nobody should have the access or any application or anything on that level that actually is not needed. Everything else can be compromising. So when the system drops down, blue screen of that, and also or maybe there is a memory dump because something has happened, application is crashed, and there's a memory dump. In that memory dump, if the key was open in memory, can be pulled on disk. So skillful forensic investigator can pull out your decryption key. So be aware of this. So after each open symmetric key statement and the statement that you need to use should be close the key. So the key is open only that amount of time that is actually used from the business process. Okay, now this is actually a statement that will pull some sample data and encrypt them on the fly and store in this new table. This is just to show you that these data are not encrypted currently. Okay, now I'll just use simple subselect, actually insert and select, combine, and see here. These are the part where I encrypt the last name using customer symmetric key, last name, credit card number, expiry month, and expiry years. So the 4 columns should be encrypted on the fly and stored in the encrypted form in new table. You know, the people say that encryption is slow. This demo is actually recorded on the laptop i5, and you see that actually on 20,000 record, it's actually took 3 seconds. So imagine on the server scale, it's simply not measurable. Okay, now I will show you on the select part, I will close the key. So you see the good practice, always close the key after the usage. And let's see encrypted binary data. You see last name, because there's a lot of nulls here. When I scroll down, you will see that also these columns are encrypted. SE also. So this data can be penetrated, but you took a large amount of time and research to do it, a couple of millions here. So these data are stored now inside the database in encrypted form. So if anybody without the key accesses those data, they are used for them. So encryption is a great security feature that can be used as a privacy keeper feature. Okay, moving forward. Also, as an additional feature in the encryption, transparent data encryption is a feature that actually encrypts the entire database. So the column encryption only encrypts the columns, but the other columns that are not encrypted can be seen from the malicious user. So last name, first name, maybe phone numbers, etc. can be seen and can be misused for blackmailing and so on. But if we add additional feature in the form of TDE, entire database will be encrypted. So if it's pulled out, it will be simply useless. And I will show you all this inside this demo. Again, master key certificate, just to check is there a certificate inside my certificate storage. And this feature is simply turned on by a couple of settings, so it's easy to use. You will see now. CryptoDB. I can use this. I can do that in the management GUI, and I can do it in a SQL statement. Let's do it on a GUI because it's more easy to use. I will just choose the encryption algorithm. I will use certificate and just say on. So you see three clicks, and say, please make backup, because I will stop here. Please make backup. So if you encrypt your database and you don't have backup of your certificate and you move your database on another server, then it will not be possible to restore it or attach it because there is no decryption key. So even you can lose your data if you don't have correct backup procedure in place. Okay, so it's on. So from my perspective, everything is okay. So what's happening? Nothing, but it's happening a lot. So everything is going in the background. So I'll now to detach the database and to simulate a malicious user who actually install this database and try to copy it using, let's say, Minute Commander on the different instance and try to attach it on his or her or their server. Okay, CryptoDB. So now I'm simulating the stealing of the database on USB stick or email and just try to restore it somewhere. Okay, now I will connect on another instance. You see, now the attaching is simply not possible because the new server, new instance doesn't have certificate. So the simply they can stop and cry there. So okay, I have the question. Could change tracking play a role? Yes. You can use it. So everything here is open for debate, and everything here can be used from different angles. So the change tracking play can be used as GDPR, but you need to recognize the feature and the mapped on the correct GDPR article. Data key rotation and handling. Okay, if you in the previous demo, we are using encryption key for the column encryption. I'm using only one key, so I can create a policy to create each time a new key, but be aware that if I change the key and I have the data inside the table encrypted with the old key, I will lose them without the encrypted and encrypted with the new key. So data key rotation on this level is simply, for me, is useless. But if we are speaking about always on feature encryption, that actually is protecting data at the rest and at the motion, even protecting from the DB administrator, then the key rotation does make sense. But on this level, I believe it will create much more trouble than use. Okay, the next demo, temporal tables. Temporal tables, as I say, are great for collecting the historical data. And the historical data can be used, and it's important because the GDPR audit team will ask you, okay, show me, is this record is actually doesn't need it anymore inside your system? Is it deleted? Is it archived? Or I don't know. So temporal table, they create the copy of the current table with 2 extra columns. And these 2 extra columns are the date seals, start time, end time, when the record is created and until when the record is used. You see the date of the creation, and it's ongoing. So this date actually represents that this record is actually still actual. So it's ongoing. After I delete it, then something will happen here. After update, something will happen. So I will update now the salary of the employee number 7369. I'll just filter that part. You see. Now, from the user perspective, I see the new salary. I don't know, is there any old salary here? I just see that there's a record here when it's created, and I see that is ongoing, so it's actual. So until now, I doesn't know, is there any change based on this record? And GDPR requires to constantly monitor the changes on the records, especially on the columns that are GDPR aware. Okay. Now I will show you the later in the demo. The part where the historical data is actually kept. You see that down there. The second salary is actually the history table. So the old salary, and when the record with the new old salary was created, and until now, and until when the record was actual. So from the GDPR perspective, this is important because there's a part that say that data need to be used only where they're required by the business process owners. So in theory, EU commerce site should delete or archive the customer data that they say on the consent screen, I want to delete my data after my purchase order. So you can keep the numerics, the amount of money, order tracking, my ID, but all the personal details should be deleted. So this feature will help you to find the data that actually are not actual anymore inside the system. It can be also used from the forensic perspective, analyze also some anomalies inside the system, but also GDPR is one of them. So I'm now delete the data to see what will happen inside the history table. You see, now I have two records. So in the current table, there is no any record, but in the history table, I see two changes. The first one it's a salary increase, and the second one is deletion. So the record is deleted from the database production system, let's say. And that's it. Okay, just one. So just one demo, please, quickly. I will show you. I will show you just in the studio classification. So quickly, right click on the database task, and there is a data classification, discovery, and classification. Classify data. You see that this feature will simply go through your database and show you the schemas, tables, the columns, and the information type and sensitivity label that should be applied inside your database. You can change this. So if you say this is this, simply do that. Imagine that you have a database with thousands of tables. So this can save you life and large amount of time. Okay, I'll now go to back my presentation. Challenges. So on the final note, the technical part of the equation is the hard part. So the regulation is easy. So there's an article and it say I require that. So the IT teams in all the level need to recognize, but on the database level, application, network, firewall, cloud, name it level needs to be used to actually fulfill and actually and protect the privacy of the customer requires by the GDPR. The role who actually needs to be that middle layer inside your company or name it is not legal department, is not CISO, is DPO. Data protection officer is actually new role on the rising that have the knowledge, enough knowledge about legal part of the story and enough knowledge about technical part of the story. So it's a middle layer that actually connects the technical part with the legal department. And that's it for me. If you didn't notice so far, my name is Jasmin Azemović. I have also a career in academy. I'm a professor, MVP, and the last 3 years I am working as a CISO in the company for the software development. And this down are my handle that you can find me on GitHub, LinkedIn if you need to discuss something about this. I'll be happy to be and stay in touch with you.